Now I'm going to give a quick demo for signing into your root user account, creating a new administrative user, and assigning a multi-factor authentication for that user. So for that, we go to aws.amazon.com/console and go to the sign in tab. Once we go into the sign in tab, we want to sign in as the root user. So we sign in using the root user email. Let me provide the user details over here. We fill in the captcha if required and give the password. If you have already set up multi-factor authentication for your root user, you will need to fill in the multi-factor authentication at this step. If not, this procedure for setting up the multi-factor authentication for the root user is the same as that for any other user. When we see that, you can do the same thing for the root user. So when you sign in into the root user, you will be greeted to the dashboard page. Any recently visited services will be available here on the left hand side. Here we have IAM. Alternatively, you can search for IAM in the search bar and go to the IAM dashboard. The identity and access management dashboard gives you the security recommendation, allows you to create users. So let me on the left create the users, and over here I am now going to create a new user. Here I will provide the user a new name. So for this I will add cloud security as the username based upon what we are going to show, and we need to provide the user access to the console management. Over here we will continue to create the user using the IAM user standard method. Over we let allow the AWS to generate the password, but we require that the user will be changing their password at the next sign in. So we select that and we click next. For the user to access resources and to make modifications on resources within the AWS space, we need to associate permissions to the group. So for that we need to create a new group. So I create the new group of security, and we will be associating policies. For the purpose of demo, I'm going to go ahead and do the administrator access, but you can choose specific policies given below by AWS, or we can even create our own policies based on the structure we can see below. So let me quickly show you a sample administrator uh, permission for Amplify. So here we can see the version of this policy. We can see the quick statement, which here we are creating the CLI cloud formation policy with the effect of allowing. And here we are using a particular service for AWS called as cloud formation, which we will see in other demonstrations. What all actions that can be performed. Since for the particular demo that we are going to do today, we will be accessing many different resources. I am going to go ahead and do the administrator access policy, which allows you to do all actions on all resources represented by these stars. So I will select this policy and I will click on create user group. So now you see that we have successfully created the security user group. I will add this user group to this user and go ahead and click on next. So here we see that we have created a new user, cloud security, with the permissions of IAM user change password, and that are associated with the security user group. We can further add tags, which are optional metadata associated with the user that can be used for any down the line audits that need to be done. So we can provide a key value pair in order to do searches on that. So I'm just demonstrating a single tag over here, but those are used for AWS audit purposes. We can use that. I'm going to go ahead and create this new user. Once this user is created, we will be able to retrieve the user password. Here you can see the console sign in URL that is specific for this user account. You can see that the URL has the unique identifying account ID that is along with the AWS sign in console. So, and we see the username and the password. This scene will be shown only once, so we can download the CSV file for local use, or we can even email the instructions if we have the email ID of who should receive these sign in credentials. So in my case, I'm going to download the CSV file. So you see that the cloud security credentials is now downloaded. I can go ahead and return to the users list. So we just created this new user, cloud security. Let us go to the user and verify that we have the policies associated properly. We see in permissions policies, we have the administrative access, which allows the user to modify all resources and perform any functions, which is necessary for the demonstrations that follow. If any other groups need to be added, we can go ahead and add more groups to the particular user. So apart from security, we can associate other groups, which will allow this user to take the policies that are for both the user groups. This user will have both the policies associated with them. Alternatively, you can also attach singular permissions to this specific user by creating separate permissions which are not part of groups, but that is not highly recommended. I am now going to sign out of my root account and sign back in into my user account, and we will see what needs to be done for setting up the multi-factor authentication. So now I'm going to sign back into the console, but this time we need to provide, we want to sign in as the IAM user. For that, we need to provide the account ID. So in the downloaded file, we have the direct link. We can use this link directly, or we can take in this number that is present at the beginning and provide that as the account ID. So I will show you that if we directly use the URL, that IAM account ID is automatically filled in. So now let me sign in with the username. So the username and password is available here, but remember, this is an auto-generated password. As soon as we sign in, we will be required to change the password. So as you can see, we come into the password reset where we give in the password, and we were required to provide a new password to continue with the user creations. So we need to provide uh, a very strong password, and that the password must match. So once we update the password, we continue to the sign in. We are now signed in as the IAM user. This can be identified on the top right where we get the IAM username at the rate account number. So once you come into this user, we were required to add in the multi-factor authentication. That is also done through the IAM page. So let me go to IAM. Over here in the center, we see the security recommendation that asks us to add MFA for ourselves. So let us add the multi-factor authenticator. For multi-factor authentication, I recommend to use any tool uh, for this. So for me, I am going to use Google Authenticator. So I given a device name for identification, and now we have various ways of creating the authentication. I'm going to go use the authenticator application. So once we have downloaded the Google Authenticator, we can go ahead and use the Google Authenticator to add a new scan the new QR code and create the multi-factor authentication. Once you create the multi-factor authentication, you are required to give two keys to ensure that the authentication has been done properly. Once we give in the two users, we have now assigned the multi-factor authentication for our user. We can see that the multi-factor authentication tool has been added. In case we want to change the authentication authenticator, we can come to IAM. We can go to the security credentials. Let me quickly show you here. We can search for them here. So go to the security credentials, and in the security credentials you can see what authentication tool has been enabled. We can go ahead and resync it if needed, or remove it, or assign another device. So that concludes the end of this demonstration. Let us meet in the next demo.